Seth is. He found one of his crushes, or 6 or 8 of them. You never know. We're going to talk about how do they do that? Who are they? And is it realistic for the Kansas City Chiefs? Because there's a lot of arguments back and forth. We're going to have a lot of fun. We'll get to some of your questions later as well. Welcome to RGR Football. I like it. Seth Kaiser is drumming away. That's the way that works. Welcome, Seth. How are you?
Really, really well. How we doing? You look like a man that just got done. I imagine you are how Atlas looked when Hercules removed him from the burden of the sky for even a moment.
I'll take it. I don't have that kind of shoulders, but yeah, I need some sleep. It's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
You did it.
Yes, it's done.
Guide is here.
I'm happy to announce that, yes, the guide is here. You can get a glimpse of it. It is,
look at that.
It is cross-checked. It is linked. It has all kinds of stuff, all my custom metrics for the first time, thanks to your guys here, Dan Harms, me, Jeff Porter, and our new guy, EJ Holt, who you will meet eventually. We actually ranked film for the top prospects at every position, along with the matrix and along with the production ranks and all the things that I do every year. And you can get this really easily by just going to one place that, I happen to kind of like. It makes things easy. It's over at rogueapc.com. And the cool part is the same code that you were using for the matrix, you can go get the draft guide for the same discount at RGR22AM at Rogue APC. It's available now. I know it's 2 weeks before the draft. I'm a little bit late. I meant to be done a week ago, but it is what it is. So I'm very, very excited. This is the first time that I've ever included my film work. I always do film work, but I just make my own notes, so that I can speak eloquently about things that I should actually know. This time we put it to paper with the help of Dan and the rest of the team. Like it's cool. It's definitely different. And it's definitely a little bit more like I'm stating this. I'm ranking this guy ahead of this guy, and I'm saying it concretely. Sure. And that's interesting for me.
Are you nervous about that?
No, I couldn't care less. I can defend my opinion just fine. No.
Nobody gets it right. Dane is as close as anyone in the industry.
Yes. And folks, you'll see a little bit from Dave Brugler here in a couple bits. Not a couple minutes, in a couple days.
Yeah. And he's the guy who, more than almost anyone, like if he really likes a guy, I haven't seen a lot of cases, like everyone gets it wrong, just how good someone will be or whatever. But I can't think of a lot of times where he's really liked a guy and that guy sucked. Like, yeah. That's just,
he doesn't miss horribly.
No, it's just like, wow, and also he's allergic to peanuts and he has a deep fear of fish. And you're like, dude, how did you know that?
He's got a slew of private investigators running all this stuff down. It's crazy.
That doesn't seem like a terrible job or it's a really terrible job. There's no in between there. But you did it. I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
Do we have any, I don't know. Do you think there's any psych fans who watch who live stream with us? Because if so, for you guys who watch Psych, great show. If you don't, by the way, I'm proud of
you. I haven't watched that since like season 1.
Oh,
I apologize. It's just not something I've been able to pull off. So
man, it's a great show. Well worth watching. Similar to the draft, which is in 2 weeks.
It is. Oh,
I still have like 7 receivers to get through.
You're doing fine. And we're going to talk tonight. Folks, we are going to answer all your questions. If you'd like to support the channel, please hit the super chat and ask your question. We will answer every super chat tonight. I guarantee you. Oh man, we're already getting members. Welcome to the memberships, Aaron. Welcome back to the memberships, Eric. Glad you made it. Appreciate you guys. Now, if you do join at the rookie level, you get into the Discord. You just got to send me an email here because I'm old school and I need to have it in the email. And I have not figured out the automation.
RGRpodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, it's an old address when I was thinking this was all just going to be podcasts forever. Check out Big Sean's channel as well. And again, there's the Matrix. But yeah, like if you want to support the channel, that's the easiest way to do it. Or go buy a draft guide. It makes things easier. I do think that is true. Whether you like my opinion or not, it does make things easier. So. Speaking of that,
I'm sorry. An old buddy of mine, Glenn, has a comment. I heated up a bowl of soup for dinner, picked it up to walk over to the computer to watch this, dropped it on the floor. Glenn.
Sorry, Glenn.
Glenn's an old buddy from the Arrowhead Pride days. Like, I mean, an old buddy, like 2008 Arrowhead Pride, who I drive crazy because I wear flip-flops and have terrible taste in food, which everyone knows. These are not secrets. Like, no one's like, oh, what? Seth has the palate of a 5-year-old? I'm surprised by this. Like, no, you knew this.
Can I get a corn dog?
Yeah. It's like, oh, what do you mean a Tombstone pizza is better than almost anything else? Anyway, I'm sorry. That made me laugh. Sorry about the soup, man. I just felt your pain. I'm picturing like a gigantic, like a bowl of soup, because Glenn, like any real man, is a man's man. And so if he's got a bowl of soup, he's got a bowl of soup that's about yay big, and I'm picturing him with oven mitts because it's piping hot, and then dropping it all over the floor.
It looks like a 2-gallon bucket the way you're holding that.
Yeah. How do you eat your soup? Do you not just put it in an ice cream bucket? And
Yeah, something I put my face into. Yeah, forget the spoons.
Yeah, I get a drop and just go nuts. Hey, what a great super chat to start us off.
Right? Thank you, Thundarius.
Also, Thundarius, I'm flattered, but aim higher. You know, like there's Ryan for starters, and it only gets up from there.
No, I'm nowhere near righteous, my friend.
Well, you're much taller than I am.
Yeah, well, it's not all of it.
The fact that you didn't do a short guy joke there, and which, by the way, I am not short. I am of average height, which is something that short guys say
all the time.
Yeah. It's like I'm 5'10" ish.
Maybe
I'm 5'10" in the same way Tyreek Hill is 5'10".
Right.
Although I'm more 5'10" than he is.
Are you?
Oh yeah, yeah. He's like 5'7".
Okay.
I'm going to go with 4'8" now that he's in Miami. That man's not even 5 feet tall. He's like Tyrion from Game of Thrones.
Listen, I drink and I know things. Okay? That's what I do. I have shirts with that on it because I can't get away from that.
Sure.
But what we can't get away from is your crushes, because I know you guys want to know about the draft crushes. And I know that Seth's been working for the first time on draft film. Well done, my friend. Give me the lowdown, and then I'm going to show you what I have, and we can kind of talk through it. You did Drake London. I know you want to talk about him a little bit, but are you specifically more in love with Jameson Williams now that you've watched him, or not so much?
With Jameson Williams, really good wide receiver. Really good. I would definitely trade up to get him with the same confines that any player in this draft in terms of trading up. Barton like, well, would you trade up 2 first-round picks for Hutchinson? Yes, I would do that, but that's not feasible. So within the frame of realistic, any player that the Chiefs would trade up for, I wouldn't want them to trade up farther than 20-ish, because you can get away with trading up to 20-ish when you've got this plethora of picks. You can go from 29 to 21 without really hamstringing yourself. You can give away a 3rd round and some change, and just kind of, and when you have 2 3rd-rounders and 2 2nd-rounders, you can play around with that stuff.
Right.
But here's the interesting thing for me with Williams. Really, really good receiver. Can clearly tell why he's the consensus-ish number 1 guy. There's really not a lot of consensus number 1 guys in this draft, is what I'm finding out now that I'm like dipping my finger into the well of draft content, is that a lot of people aren't sure about a lot of things. Like even now, people like Kyle Hamilton was like this sure thing. And now people are like, I don't know, and who's to say? I have no idea. Mostly all I've ever seen with Kyle Hamilton is like the same play people replay over and over. That's an unbelievable play where he comes all the way across the field. That's like a holy crap play. It's like, so what does he do? Snap in and snap out. I could create a highlight reel of Christian Ponder's time as a Viking starter. I could create a 5-minute highlight reel that makes him look like a Hall of Famer. Maybe not 5 minutes. I could do a 4-minute highlight reel. And that's just it, because it's about what players do over time. Any good enough player is going to have highlight. Now, I'm not saying that's Kyle Hamilton. I'm sure he's awesome. I just don't know anything about him. And I just noticed it's always the same play. And I'm like, show me more. Anyway, Williams, who you asked about.
Yes.
Yes.
Hit the wrong one. Zach, thank you very much for the super chat.
You know what? Using all 12 picks would be a good thing. I think within reason. I don't think you want to get too married to any one thing or another. If you've got some dude that you love on your draft board, and he's
You
like
probably
5
shouldn't
picks
take him.
away, and you can get him without giving away too much.
Wait a minute. What happens when Brett Veach falls in love?
He gets that dude.
Yeah, and then what happens?
The Chiefs win Super Bowls.
Nope. You spend the next 2 years trying to make him figure out how you're going to use the guy you fell in love with.
Which the guys that he's fallen in love with, Brett Veach has done unbelievable work on certain positions, and then other positions I'm mystified. Although not all that I'm sure is on him. A lot of people are talking right now about like the Spagnuolo defensive end and like the prototype that they're looking for. And I'm like, what does that mean? Because I'm not sure it's working. That was one thing, like when they signed Melvin Ingram, people were like, wow, he's not really a prototypical Spags end. Yeah, and he played well. Like, I don't really care about arm length and height and weight. I care. Can you set the edge? Can you rush the passer?
I agree.
I don't really care about anything else. Anyway, Williams, again, he's a really good player. If the Chiefs traded up a little bit to grab him, great. I wouldn't be like freaking out. I'd be freaking out a little because he has unique speed. No, not Tyreek Hill speed. No one. It's similar to there's Ritter kind of reminds me of Patrick Mahomes. No, he doesn't. I mean, you can have a certain trait. It's just not as pronounced. The Chiefs. The odds are the Chiefs will never have another player like Tyreek Hill ever again, because I can't really name a lot of players like Tyreek Hill who've been in the NFL.
Can't name any.
I mean, in terms of his exact prototype, there's been none. No. In terms of like pure athletic freakness and having such a high level of a freak trait, there's like him, Randy Moss, Chris Johnson for like a year or two. In terms of physical, you have some guys from back in the day, like when you watch like Otis Taylor for the time period he was in. I mean, there just aren't that many guys that are freakish like him.
Yeah.
So when I say that Jameson Williams is freakishly fast, it's for a normal human. It's Deshaun Watson fast. He's Deshaun Watson fast. And it's Deshaun Jackson. I know who you meant.
I
have no interest in entering the discussion on Deshaun Watson. None.
You're legally bound to avoid it. That's what we're doing here.
I cannot believe they gave him that contract. That's all.
I'm so with you.
Although I'm in a way, like in a purely like just amoral, only paying attention to football implications way, I'm grateful from the Chiefs' perspective because it's helped get the ball really rolling on quarterback contracts getting crazier and crazier. And Patrick Mahomes' deal is now one of like 4 or 5 that are in the same year-by-year stratosphere. And he's locked up for like another 9 years.
Right.
I mean, they'll renegotiate it eventually, but they don't really even need to because
if
of what
they needed to push it, they could.
They could. Anyway, Williams, man, I'm telling you.
James was talking about what we're talking about, so that's why I had him up there. Thank you, James.
Yeah, absolutely. Williams he has great speed at all levels of the field. He's excellent run after the catch guy. He can get away with things. He's similar to Hill in that regard. He can run sideways. He can run backwards because he's got so much burst. He's so quick. He can get a decent release off the line. He needs some refining, I think, in his routes and his releases. But he's so gifted that he can stack guy. I mean, it's within a few yards. He's just and he's around them, and he's hard to press, extremely hard to keep up with, and he's got that kind of speed to where it doesn't matter what the route is. He's running away from the corner. So I really like him. All that to say, I don't like him quite as much as I thought I would. I thought I would like him so much that I was going to be bummed that the Chiefs have virtually no chance about drafting him.
But you're not.
Honestly, I would put him like in the same level of hype that I would be if they grabbed him as Olave in London. Like if the Chiefs grabbed any of those 3 dudes, I think I'd be about his hype.
Yeah. So that's why I wanted to get to this point, because this is our grading system. Dan and I combined on the receivers. So there's athleticism built in here. There's production as well. Actually, I should change this view, you guys, so you can see this a little bit better.
I can see it really well if I full screen it, but then I see me better, and I need to lose a few pounds. So there's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
You and me both, my friend. But we have Williams top, followed by Olave, followed by London. So like those are the three. I actually, on my personal board, I have Garrett Wilson up top ahead of Williams.
And Wilson I haven't gotten to yet. I'm told that I'm going to love him, that he's not as fast as Williams, but he's as explosive. And there's a difference. Although as explosive even is pushing it. I mean, it's just he's a different player.
I wouldn't put it that way, but he is explosive. Just not, I don't see it quite the same, but
right. Well, and so here's the thing for me with Wilson or with Williams, that is, he does have some areas that he's not, I don't think, elite at. I don't think he has any areas that he's bad.
Right. He's
not bad with contested catches or catching through contact, but it's not an area I would call him high level.
Okay.
And then that does that matter nearly as much because Olave, same thing, right? Although I think Olave plays the ball a little bit better, but it doesn't
Olave
matter.
Doesn't survive contact at all.
He doesn't survive contact. Same with Williams. Williams might survive contact a little better. I think Olave adjusts to the ball a little bit better in terms of when he's got one coming in hot. But if you're talking contact, neither of them are the guys you want. Maybe Williams a little more. I think Williams is a little tougher player.
Agreed.
Maybe quite a bit tougher player, honestly. But it doesn't matter with either of them for the most part because they're always open. And it just doesn't matter that much. Emmanuel Sanders at his peak was not a terrific, and people use Sanders as almost like it's like a wide receiver too. At his peak, Emmanuel Sanders could be your best receiver, and you were fine.
And you were still moving the ball. Yeah.
Yeah, and you could move the ball. Is it quite as good as having a Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Tyreek Hill, whatever, right? No, very few things are. But a genuine number one receiver, Emmanuel Sanders at his peak, absolutely. Guys who win in similar ways, Stephon Diggs, although Diggs is a better guy through contact than either of those guys. Those are guys you could have as very high-level guys. Yeah. I think with Williams, because he does have a few areas where he's kind of average-ish, it doesn't matter as much because he gets open a ton. Same with Olave. He gets open a ton. Olave especially. It doesn't matter the coverage with him. Williams, this is one thing where the two of them, Williams is a little bit more coverage dependent. Not much, because he can run away from man coverage. He's pretty smart in zone coverage. But Olave, I didn't see a single scenario that he wasn't generally just getting open.
Mm-hmm. He settles more, and he understands where the weakness of that settling is.
Yeah.
Whereas I think sometimes Williams he finds the hole fine, but then he's not quite sure what to do with it to exploit it any farther.
Right. He's a little more herky-jerky on his routes, too. And I don't mean that in his movement. I mean, he's kind of over-reliant on skips and hesitation moves. Mm-hmm. He'll do a couple of them as he goes through, and you can tell he's still putting it all together. Now, that said, these are developmental things. Last year was his first, really full-time playing time.
Yeah.
And the ceiling with him is astronomical. He could be a freakishly good receiver. And that ceiling's higher than Olave, who I think his ceiling is a Emmanuel Sanders type player.
A high end 2.
Yep. Yeah. A very, 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 an incredibly high end 2 and a good 1, but not like an elite 1. And that's where one reason I talk about Drake London, if Drake London hits his ceiling, he is we're throwing him the ball 15 times a game, no matter what, right? He's that kind of player. And that's something I just can't seem to get away from with him, is that that dominant trait.
Mm-hmm.
Man, that's hard to get away from. And again, I don't think that's the way the Chiefs want to play. Olave was built in a factory to be in an Andy Reid offense. But man,
Jahan Dotton's right behind him too. Very similar.
I actually just finished his stuff today. Dotson, and both of them really good technical route runners. Mm-hmm. Smart, know where to go. It's just Olave is a lot smoother than Dotson. Exactly. He's got more quickness and significantly better top end speed.
Mm-hmm.
That's with Dotson. I don't see a guy who can threaten all three levels of the field there.
Oh, see, I do. I'd have to check his numbers, but I don't think they're that different in terms of 40 speed and that kind of thing. But sure. I think there's a little bit more lag with him. I think he's a little thicker built. And so I don't think he hits that top gear as easily.
Mhm.
But hey, that is what it is.
No, I could see that. I like the way he accelerates, generally speaking. It just he doesn't run away in any way. And I think Olave can a little. Not as much as some of these other guys. But one thing that's interesting is the more guys I've watched, I've gone through 6 guys now, and these are the guys that are considered, first and second rounders. And what's interesting to me is I still, if I'm taking a look at it here, I still have a number of guys to go through that are considered potential high level picks.
Yeah.
People aren't sure what's going to happen with David Bell. People aren't sure what's going to happen with Sky Moore. Obviously, people think Garrett Wilson's going to be drafted high. And then you got a few other guys like Alec Pierce, Jalen Tolbert, George Pickens, which is a guy that Chiefs fans are asking me about constantly.
Yeah.
And I will get to him, I promise.
You're going to have to hunt for that film, bro.
Yeah, with Pickens. It's same. Sky Moore, I don't have any currently. So,
I only found one game. I will try to get it to you if you need it.
Oh, that would be great. I like the way Moore moves on a side note, at least at the first 2 levels. I'm not sure at the third yet. But
I will tell you this. You can watch the broadcast on YouTube. There are some
oh, yeah. Yep. I see like the Sky Moore versus. I've just gotten kind of spoiled with these, all 22 available for all these guys. But some of these guys, I accept it. I would just say that one thing that's interesting to me is being done with 6 guys. And so I've looked at Burks, Watson, Williams, Olave, London, and Dotson. And I haven't found a single receiver that I didn't like at all. Like Burks, I'm probably more down on. I come across as more down on him, but I see the ceiling there. And I see the appeal and the things that he can do. It's just I'm not so sure it'll translate to the next level. So that's, I think, the thing, the long road to the short thought with Williams is I didn't like him so much more than some of these other guys that I think you trade away draft capital to get him.
Gotcha. Speedy, I do want to address this because you have a fair point. When you're behind Wilson, Olave, and Smith and Jigba, it's difficult to break in. I will tell you this. The Ohio State offense has been churning out wide receivers for a good reason because they are technically sound. It's a more multiple offense, whereas Alabama uses you to your strength and designs things for you. So it was a smart move on his part to transfer to Alabama. But I don't think that it necessarily precludes you from saying that he's got some problem because he couldn't beat out those other receivers. So at the end of the day, it's about how everybody fits in the Chiefs offense, not what they did to fit in their previous offense.
Right. And it's about projection and how it translates to the pro level. There are some, and that's one thing where I like Dotson, but I'm curious if he translates to the pro level because I just feel like there's just that half step slower there. But again, it doesn't show up in his testing. It's just what I feel like I'm seeing on film.
And that's fair. And some guys don't play as well as they test. It's the truth too many times. Now Spards, I'll just answer this, or we'll answer this real quick, but we want to keep talking because we need to talk about London further in this offense. Going to show my ignorance, but not knowing the impact of Chris Jones and Aaron Donald have as a DT. Why is no one talking about a trade up for someone like Jordan Davis? He seems to be mocking at 12-15. It's not ignorance. I will tell you this because in college, Jordan Davis has not been anywhere close to Chris Jones or Aaron Donald because he's not a pass rusher. He has been an eat double teams, be explosive, penetrate gaps when you have to kind of guy. Not, listen, go work this guy, use pass rush moves, go attack the quarterback. That's not been his role. Same problem with Trayvon Walker, who's the best athlete of the edges all the way around. He's got the most length. He's got the most power. He's the heaviest guy. He brings it all. But he was asked to line up head over a tackle and take him on all the time and let the linebackers go blitz. They are the most blitz-heavy defense in college football, and that's why. So it's an apples to oranges thing. I think Davis can turn into a good pass rusher, but I think it's going to take him a couple of years because he hasn't been asked to do it.
Right. And he's got the tools to do it. He certainly has the athleticism, certainly has the strength.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, like with that Georgia defense, I mean, it's so packed with talent, but it's so unique in how it's run that I'm curious. And I don't know if guys think about this enough when they're in high school trying to pick a college. But I mean, if I'm Nick Saban and I'm competing against Georgia for recruits, and Nick Saban doesn't lose a lot of recruiting battles, but if he were, it would be to Georgia. One of the things I would say is like a Walker type guy is, if you come with me, I'm going to let you rush the passer and get 15 sacks a year. And maybe Walker does go early anyway. I mean, he will go early. But I just think it becomes more of a projection with the way Georgia runs their defense. And you don't want
Absolutely.
to use that against Davis. But again, it's a projection. You just don't know what they're going to do when asked to do some of these other things.
It's the nature of the beast. I mean,
Yeah.
A lot of the draft is projection. This year is just a little bit more so than maybe normal.
Right.
So anyway, back to London. Yeah, it was great. Thanks, Sparts. So back to London. The thing for me is his quarterback play was subpar. Always has been, particularly this last season. And don't get me wrong, I like Jackson Dart, but he is a crazy man with the ball in his hand. He will mature. I don't know if Lane Kiffin's going to help him do that at Ole Miss, but hey, he is now transferred to Ole Miss. He will be their quarterback. I'm a big Jackson Dart guy, but he didn't help Drake London be better. Drake London helped him be better. And so projecting Drake into this offense, is that part of your evaluation, or you just like what he does? Because I think he's got more short area quickness than he shows or was able to show with those quarterbacks.
I actually completely agree with that. People have a fear with guys who win a bunch of contested catch situations in college, saying, well, that shows they can't separate. I would say that showed, for one, they threw him the ball a crap load. And so you're going to end up in more contested catch situations. He had some kind of poor quarterback play, especially with accuracy and just YOLO throwing the ball up. And really, to his quarterback's credit, his quarterback realized pretty early on, I can just chuck the ball up to Drake and he's going to get it. Like, I'm better off just throwing it wildly in his direction than throwing it away, because it's not a 50-50 ball. Drake London, at least in college, that's like a 90-10 ball.
Yeah.
And that's, did you see that too? I mean, it was such a high level of winning those plays and game after game. Didn't matter. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, he's a power forward at worst. His wingspan is incredible. His catch radius makes quarterbacks better.
And it's so rare to see a guy with that kind of height and weight and power and hand strength also have his body control and feel for when to high point the ball, to adjust the body control, to adjust when the ball's coming. He really is. I mean, he is an unbelievably high level contested catch guy. And that's in a way that I don't see that changing at the next level, because it's not like there's a lot of 6'2" corners in the NFL. And I mean, most guys he's going to be playing against are going to be 5'10" to 6 foot, weigh about 190 to 205. And he's going to have those same size advantages, and he's going to have better ball skills than them. That's just, you can see that easily. And then you move on to the other question. He can't separate. That's why. I think there's lots of particularly slants and ins in breaking routes in the short area of the field that he showed the ability to separate on. And when you have an elite guy like him, you don't need to have a huge route tree that you win on. You know whose route tree wasn't huge, and this is not fair to anyone, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm not about being fair. I'm about being right. Randy Moss didn't have a huge route tree. He didn't. Now, he could have, because he was a freak.
Right.
But he won at such a high level in several different ways that complemented one another that it was unstoppable. Now, does London have Randy Moss's ceiling? No, no one does. Come on. But he can win at such a high level. Like, was something someone asked me, and I actually showed the video clip from the article I wrote on him. It's like, well, yeah, but he's not quick enough to beat press. It doesn't matter, because if the corner gets close enough to him for London to give him a shove and just body him off and catch the ball, he's already lost. Corners don't want to be in London's space.
Right.
Because he can run through it.
And quickness is not the only way to beat press.
Right. If you have a lot of brute strength, that attempted shot, and that's the thing. London didn't show to me a really vast repertoire of moves to beat the press and hand fighting, but those are things that can be taught. And I thought he ran good enough routes and showed some good enough instincts against zone that he looks coachable. And those are things, when you have the tools, those are things that can be taught.
Well, and here's the kicker. He was a part-time football player until this last season.
Yep.
So there's a lot of upside there in refinement of his game that is still yet to come.
Absolutely. And he really is. He has elite physical tools. And unlike a guy like Christian Watson, who also has elite physical tools, But with Drake London, that also matched elite production. And it was demonstrative repeatedly. Now, maybe Christian Watson, look, NDSU runs the ball like for 8 yards a carry.
Right.
They are a buzzsaw. And that does not leave a lot of opportunities for a wide receiver to grow or to show out. Although it's worth noting that Watson, wasn't he a fifth-year senior?
I think so, yes.
That rarely, you don't see
Works
a lot
out.
of wide receivers that have great NFL careers after being in college all 5 years.
Right.
But now you can't judge one receiver based off the lack of success of another. But the reality is the amount of developing and that kind of stuff that should kind of show out sooner. It's just a thought. But so anyway, unlike Watson, London, who isn't as athletic as Watson, very few people are, but he matches it with the production, and you see the functionality of those elite traits. And I do think, like you said, I think he's got a little more short area quickness than he gets credit for. And when you're built like him, you don't need to move like Olave. You don't need to move like Dotson because you are open when you have a yard of separation. You don't need 2 yards of separation. You need a foot.
Think of it this way. He can do all the things that Travis Kelce does, and I think he's a little more athletic than Travis is. We'll find out tomorrow. He runs his pro day. He's going to be the last guy tomorrow on Friday. And folks, you can get all of Seth's words and thoughts here at his Substack, Minnesota Chiefs fans.
Yes, subscribe. You read all about wide receivers. The one on Traylon Burks is free. If you want to get a quick see what you're looking at and see, am I sure I'm going to like this? I think you will. Man, that pro day is a big deal for London. If he runs like a 4.4 or something, that's it.
Oh yeah, it's over.
And that shouldn't be. It shouldn't be the difference maker, but you know it will be.
If he's sub 4.6, he's still going in the top 3 wide receivers.
Yep. He basically, in order to not be one of the top 3 receivers, and you never know because goofy things can happen, but let's say top 5 at least. I mean, if he was the 5th receiver taken, that would be hilarious and unexpected. Yeah. But if he runs even like a 4.5, let alone a 4.4, yeah, what are you going to do? Which I'm prepared to be disappointed if they don't take him because I do think in the Chiefs offense, I think they could really use a guy like him. And I also think his ceiling, his floor, like anyone else in the NFL draft, is bust, right? But his realistic ceiling based on skill set, I think, is about as high as any of the other receivers in the draft, if not higher.
I love to do this. I know it's a video format, folks, but if you happen to have this on at home and you're not watching intently, do this. Close your eyes. It's a triangle set out to the left side of the Chiefs formation, and it's Jody Fortson, Travis Kelce, and Drake London. What do you do? Because I'm here for this all day long.
Well, and the funny thing to think about with that is Drake London is a physical player, and he blocks mean. Mm-hmm. And so, do you send
as much
3
for a California guy
out there?
Yeah, good luck with that.
Because Travis will run over a corner. Jody Fortson just as capable of running over a corner, and so is Drake London. And so there's a lot to like about him. I don't think the Chiefs will have a shot at him, a realistic one. But he's one, if he, let's say some team, let's say Wilson goes as high as a lot of people think he will. Because I've heard a lot of people talk about him as being like a top 2 guy, which would be interesting. Yeah. Which would go along with your theory on him. And so let's say Williams, Wilson, and then, the Eagles fall in love with Olave. And then all it takes is one other guy to have someone just really, we can turn Traylon Burks into the next Debo, something like that, which is not, he doesn't have the short area quickness.
It's not real, but yes.
Even with like the AJ Brown comparisons, I
think AJ's a better athlete.
Yeah, Brown has, they both don't have significant long speed. Although I think Burks, when he gets going, I think Burks has better long speed than Brown. But he's not as quick as Brown. And I think with the way those guys win, I think that quickness matters more.
That's the thing. He has to build up to his best trait.
Right. And that's just tough. Now, he may have a really good pro career. It's just a projection. But maybe a team falls in love with Christian Watson and just freaks out because of the athletic metrics. When that happens, Oakland, Vegas, whoever you are, come on, Christian Watson. The guy can fly, and he can. And speaking of which, that's something I actually had someone email me and ask really nicely about, like what they felt like was the difference between my opinion of Watson versus the athletic matrix's opinion, what I noted was the athletic matrix is just measuring functional athleticism. In terms of functional athleticism, Christian Watson's about as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Especially for a dude who's 6'4".
Yeah.
And that shows up on the field. It's not like he's just an underwear Olympics guy. He is blazing fast and blazing quick. It's just all a projection.
Yeah.
Now he's done everything that's been asked of him, but what do you know what I mean? You're guessing, and that freaks me out.
I mean, honestly, there's been a lot of great athletes, superior athletes that just don't know how to play the game. And unfortunately, if you don't know how to play the game, when you get to the NFL, you have to learn on the fly right now. And if you can't do that, Mecole Hardman, it makes things difficult. It makes it hard to reach your potential.
Mecole Hardman's a phenomenal athlete.
He is. And he's still struggling in aspects of the game that are holding him back. I think he's ready to turn a corner personally. I think it's been enough time.
Here is real. Undefeated. And really, Mecole Hardman is 900 to 1,000-yard season from a really nice payday. I mean, you see what receivers are getting paid right now, especially receivers that have one dominant trait to point to, and he does. And so, it's just interesting thinking about the receivers. The more I see guys that I really like, because I like Dotson, wouldn't spend a first rounder on him. I think he's not your wide receiver one. I don't think he's got that Emmanuel Sanders ceiling. I think, and again, I could be wrong there because he runs great routes, tough player. I don't like his lack of yard after catch ability. That bums me out a little because even more so than Olave can make guys miss a little bit better. It seems like both of them are first contact guys though. Like they're not breaking a lot of tackles out there.
Right.
Whereas you got some other guys, that is like a Treylon Burks. It's like, oh, the first corner came to hit me. Wham. And that is fun to watch. But the more these guys I watch, the more I see the Chiefs really, they could double dip on wide receivers in round 1 and round 2. And I'd be like, makes sense. And maybe you go
you take 2 edges and 2 wide receivers in those 4 picks. I'm okay with that.
That wouldn't bother me one bit. I
just can't see him take 2 wide receivers in the first.
That would be hilarious.
That would bother me. And Demetrio, like you're absolutely right. That's what I'm trying to say. And if anything, Mecole, I hope you are watching. Take this. You can be a better player. I have faith in you. And it's not just the George Bulldog background and my family and that kind of thing. I've been in Mecole's corner the whole time. But it is now time for him to kick it into gear. I'm tired of waiting. I've said 3 years running, hey, this is the year that he could put it all together. So, Mecole, put it all together.
And without Hill there are certain opportunities. He can't do everything Hill does because he lacks the stop-start that Hill has. But he does have better quickness than he gets credit for, and very few people can move like him. Very few people can accelerate and have a top speed like Mecole Hardman.
Yeah.
And
I'll tell you
have some opportunities for certain types of plays that if he works with those, his niche in the offense could grow, regardless of who they take in the draft. And it doesn't need to grow that much for him to have 1,000-yard season. What he had, like 750 this last year?
Yeah, he could do a lot. And it really comes down to the fact that you've had the time. It's just about kicking that into gear. And I know that he's been feeling picked on this offseason. I like that. Be pissed off.
Yeah.
Let's get fired up a little bit, okay? Let's not be laxatives. Let's not be happy to be in the NFL. Let's be pissed off that we're not 1,000-yard receiver and talking about getting $20 million a year. Let's do that, Mecole. I'm here for you.
Absolutely. Remember, we've talked about this before. Don't ever underestimate the value of screw you energy. There's a lot to, oh, you don't think I can? Okay.
Right.
There's value in that. Use that. Don't be bitter about it. Use that. And I'm excited to see what he does. Still wouldn't bother me if the Chiefs took 2 receivers.
Yeah, that's fine. Just in the first round, though?
If they in the first round, it would have to be like something really weird happens. Like, like something insane where like Olave and Drake London fall. Like, then it's like, you know what? Let's just get weird and just get bizarre. But it would have to be something similar to that, to where 2 like guys that you just love and you say, okay, we're going with talent. We'll figure out the rest later. Let's score 45 a game. With the way receivers are getting paid lately, that would be the one area that would make me at least consider it. Again, something weird would have to happen in terms of.
I hear you.
But
We'll
receivers,
talk about that scenario next week.
receivers are becoming kind of a bubble market in the NFL.
Prima donnas? Oh, yeah, that too.
I'm starting to feel like, and we'll see what happens with the Packers and the Chiefs this year. They're going to be really interesting litmus tests on this. Mm-hmm. We know an elite quarterback is way more important. We know that. How much more important? Because let's say, what if the Chiefs offense, and they're going to draft a guy, and yes, they went out and signed Juju and they signed MVS, who are fine players, but not nearly at the level of Tyreek Hill, and they're much more niche players. And they obviously,
they're not a one, but neither of them.
Let's say the Chiefs perform at an identical level that they did last year with a rookie and then the guys they have. That would be a pretty good indicator that maybe there's never a time to pay the top of the market value for a wide receiver. Because if Tyreek Hill doesn't deserve it, given how unique he is and how dominant he is in certain things, right? I can't.
Who would?
I don't know who would, honestly, because it's hard. I think Adams is a better receiver by a very slim margin, but he's not Agreed. As dominant in certain traits. Agreed. And so, I mean, and plus Hill's a perfect fit for Mahomes, and Adams is really a perfect fit for Rodgers too, although they're both kind of chameleons. They can do a lot of things. And so that'll just be an interesting litmus test for the whole NFL. And I don't know if anyone's going to learn their lesson that way, because the NFL is kind of, I mean, it just keeps building and building and building. And I really think wide receiver contracts, maybe the Chiefs should have traded for Amari Cooper, because $20 million a year for a dude of Amari Cooper's ability might not look too bad here now.
Nah, you need 6 of them on your roster. Go draft some.
Look, I understand that he went to Bama, but you've got to at least.
I don't have anything against Bama. Unless they're DBs. Their DBs get hurt in the league. They don't last.
Well, Saban plays those guys hard.
He does.
But I do think that's just an interesting. That's one thing I'm going to be watching for all year. The Chiefs, and I understand there's a ton of context to all of this, but if the Chiefs are just as good on offense this next year as they were this last year. Oh, and by the way, people think that they were like bad on offense this last year. They weren't, for one thing. They were top 3 offense. They also were
going to the books, people. He's going to the books.
They were also historic in converting third down. I received a present. The 2021 Kansas City Chiefs third down offense. Check it out. A friend, a Twitter friend, a coach, Brett, I'm going to butcher your last name, so I'm not even going to try. He sent this to me, and I just got to tell you, it breaks down every single third down of the year. And
of the year.
Of the entire 2021 season. So let's see. Game, Green Bay, first quarter, 3rd and 8, ball in the Kansas City 38. Result complete to Kelsey for 8+ yards. Personnel 11. The concept is smash. Look at this.
Yeah, it's great.
This is tremendous.
I need it in electronic format, though. But yes,
it does exist in electronic format. I don't think – look for him on Twitter. Reach out to him. Okay. He's a good dude.
I will. Folks, we're going to get to your questions at this point. We're going to run out of time because we're going to wrap it up right at the top of the hour. So we'll go through this, Seth, and I'll throw them to you when we can. Do you think the Chiefs can make it a back-to-back Super Bowl with 2 or 3 number 2 receivers rather than having a number 1?
Yes.
I think raising all is good.
Yes. I think, generally speaking, if you were to pick between, 3 number 2s and 1 number 1 and 2 number 4s, I think you're actually better off in the first scenario with the way the NFL works, the way offenses work. It's just almost impossible to get there because usually in the NFL, you're not paying number 2s number 2 money. You're paying them number 1 money.
Exactly. Oh, it makes it tough. And somebody asked for something real quick that I do want to. Where to go? Somebody asked who I was talking about. Yeah, Humphrey and Diggs. Diggs has been in the league like 2-3 years. So yeah, we'll see how long his career is. I'll give you Humphrey, although I think Humphrey's starting to fall off already. And he's not that old. So yeah, I do see that careers of Alabama DBs generally have been over the years shortened in the league. because of the pounding and all the things that they go through at Alabama. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. It just makes it harder to give him a second contract. So it's a little buyer beware is all. Jeremy, how far up would all of our sevens get us? They'd get you a hamburger on Tuesday, basically. You might be able to get to the mid seventh. They're all but worthless unless there's teams that just need to fill out their roster and they're throw-ins. So when the Chiefs want to move up from fourth to the third, they're going to throw in a seventh or two, and that's how it's going to get.
They're a way of making a deal sound a little bit better.
Sweeteners, they call them.
Yes.
Yeah. Mac, thank you for the support. Appreciate you, man. How do you balance athleticism versus the tape, especially as it pertains to the first round? Christian Watson being the best testing wide receivers. For me, it is about what you prioritize. And I am heavily on athleticism. I think it's the number one thing that sets you apart if everything else is equal. So for me, I generally grade about 50% tape, about 40% athleticism, and about 10% production. The league doesn't care as much about production as I do. I want to see somebody do it to feel comfortable. But that's the thing. Every situation is different. That's like a base formula, right? Sometimes it's 60-30, sometimes it's 50-40. Who knows? It just depends on the year. But in this particular case, Watson's case is that he is an extreme athlete who was not overly productive, and I think has ways to go coming from the offense that he has. So I'm still projecting him as a day 2 selection. Somebody else in the league thinks I'm crazy.
I think you sum it up pretty well. I think Watson will get taken before that just because people fall in love with that athleticism. And I get why, because it gives you a ceiling as a player that other people can't have. And when you can move and have a body like Christian Watson, which that came out weird, but what are you going to do? You only have to be this good at route running, this good at reading defenses, this good. Whereas a guy that's 80% the athlete has to be this good. And it's hard to get from here to here. It's incredibly hard. And there's honestly a few more people in the world that are built physically that way than guys, honestly, who are built mentally that way and built physically that way to where you can get to that level. It's just almost impossible. Most guys that are built mentally to process this stuff that's happening on a football field, because that's a gift as well.
True.
Most guys who can process information that quickly and move on it, they lack the athleticism. They lack the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. They do not have the ability to put it into play. And that means it's useless.
At that point, you can't exploit it. Thanks, Mac. Appreciate you. Julian, any wide receiver we chose would probably be sitting for most of the year. Maybe. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the top tier here, they make it into playing time. I mean, I'm all for Juju and MVS, but a top tier talent, Olave's getting on the field. Williams is getting on the field. London's getting on the field. Wilson's getting on the field.
Byron Pringle and Demarcus Robinson got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of snaps last year. There are snaps to be had. The Andy Reid rookie thing is a bit of an excuse, honestly. And there are guys that have jumped into Andy Reid's offense and had a ton of snaps early.
I mean, Deshaun in particular was able to be very explosive early.
Yeah.
So I think this group is pretty dang good. Yeah. How upset or disappointed will everyone be if Veach doesn't trade up to get Williams? Won't hurt my feelings. Go get edges. I don't know that I want to trade up at all unless there's somebody worth going to get. So what I'm saying is don't trade up unless it's a draft night thing where your guy's there. And hopefully your guy is my guy, because if your guy's William speaks 2.0, I'm nervous.
Yeah, it would bum me out a little. It'll bum me out a little not getting him because he's got those high-level traits. But what are you going to do? Another guy, just on a side note, Jeremy Maclin had about 800 yards as a rookie in Andy Reid's offense. Okay. Like, if you've got a certain skill set, there's a spot for you.
I like it. And that's not to give you static, Julian, just saying, like, I don't think that that's necessarily the case. MVS and Juju are good players. They're not anybody that's going to hold, I think, the top 4 or 5 back. Teddy, realistic, what are the odds that we trade up for a wide receiver? I'm talking 10 to 15 range because that's probably where you guys. I mean, realistically, it's 10% in terms of my opinion.
Yeah, I think the Chiefs are probably going to have to see that run start and then jump in there at a certain point. Depending on, are there 10 guys they really like? Are there 5 guys they really like? Because if it's only 5, then they're probably going to have to jump up there a little.
Agreed. Julian, I'd take Wyatt over Davis if I had to draft one. I am 100% with you because Wyatt can walk in and give you some pass rush tomorrow.
That's a big deal.
With Noddy in-house and Saunders in-house and Turk in-house, I can handle the run. I need somebody to walk in and be a pass rushing DT tomorrow.
Yeah, the Chiefs have a desperate need as a pass rusher. They have a desperate need there.
Yeah. KC, hope you're doing well. Watch your Lockdown show earlier, and you presented a package of picks for the Chiefs to move up to the number 3 spot for Sauce, a player that you would be willing. It was this crazy scenario Chris was going over, like we've been playing with all these suggested craziness. Is Sauce Gardner a player that you would be willing to do that for? I mean, that was like a 4-pick package to go get Sauce. And I like Sauce. But we also, I think, see a lot of people overinflating his performance. Yes, he didn't give up a touchdown in college. They nearly never threw at him. He was good enough early that he didn't get a lot of looks. So I think that you could run into something where once you get targeted a lot in the league, he's a little on the thin side for me. I think he can get bodied up. Power receivers, I think, are going to have a little bit easier time than what we've seen. But top 3, that would cost so much I wouldn't do it.
Yeah.
11?
That's just so much.
11,
I was
13, 15, sure.
Who did Sauce Gardner play for? I don't know anything about the corners.
Cincinnati.
Okay.
And I'll tell you this, his partner in crime, Kobe Bryant's going to go probably in the 3rd, and I'd take him all day long. Frey, Tariq Woolen, late 2nd, playing both wide receiver and corner. A, he doesn't have the skill set to play either in the league yet. B, if he goes in the late 2nd, someone has made a drastic miscalculation. Folks, he's a great athlete. His film is a 4th-round player. Let's be real. His flashes are good, but his day-to-day is whoo.
Yeah. Ooh, I'll take this next one.
Do it.
From Teddy. Is there a difference between Watson and MVS? Long speed, not necessarily. Although I think Watson's a tick faster long speed. Although MVS can fly. His top speed, he runs away from dudes. He doesn't accelerate quite as quickly as Watson. Doesn't have nearly Watson's quickness.
If I remember correctly, it's over 1/10 of a second difference.
Yep. MVS is more of a 3rd-step dude, which is actually, he accelerates pretty well for a bigger guy. Mm-hmm. And then that top gear, he hits like maybe a step or 2 sooner than you'd expect. And then he runs away from guys. And that's why one of the reasons he's a really good deep threat, because he can accelerate a little better than you'd think. But Watson's a freak. MVS is a fast guy. Big difference.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Thank you, Teddy. KC, who do you guys feel is this year's Trey Smith? That's a good one.
Drops for health stuff.
I'd hope it's a Jabo, but I don't know.
So if he went to 29 or 30, would you grab him there?
I'd be tempted at 30 if I could get another player I know can start at 29.
That's a bummer for him getting hurt like that. My understanding is his tape is really impressive.
Yeah. For a guy who still doesn't really know what he's doing. It's very much impressive. I would trade up from 29 and trade back with 30 to like 38-ish and take him there.
Right. I think with Trey Smith, it was a unique situation because he was a lineman and it was weird medicals. Also, with all the COVID stuff, teams weren't quite as comfortable. And, in terms of like, medicals were a little harder to come by, apparently. I think they found a way around that. But I think Trey Smith, had he played wide receiver and been in an identical situation, I think he'd have been taken sooner. I think the fact that he also plays offensive line, that played into it. He was an incredibly unique situation. And you really can't try to duplicate lightning strikes. Yeah. It's just tough to do. And so you really do have to, trust your board, and you don't want to try to outsmart yourself too much. And really the Chiefs, in theory, could have taken him multiple other times. True. And they didn't. And that doesn't mean, they had it so well projected that he dropped to the 6th. They had their concerns too. If the Chiefs were like, we really think that he's going to be a starting guard, we really think that the health's going to be okay, they'd have taken him probably in the 4th round.
I was going to say, like, they got through the 4th and he was still there. And that's when they started to go, oh, hey, maybe we can take this chance now. Yep. But to give you a name, Casey Masterpiece, it's Justin Ross. Lot of injury issues, didn't run well. I think he's lying in the weeds. And as he continues to recover, I think there's a lot of upside for him where he's going to be a day 3 guy, and he might actually pay off. Claude, can you explain better what you see in Pickens that has him lower for you than, say, the KCSN folks? Consistency. He does not win with his hands out of his breaks enough for me. He has the top gear, but he's reliant on that. And he came back from his ACL, and they only targeted him 9 times. That's not all in Stetson Bennett either. There is, I think, something still going on with him physically that doesn't allow him to actually accelerate as much as he did prior to the injury. So, from my opinion, he's a second-round player. He's not wide receiver 1. I don't love him. That's all. KCSN guys, they know what they're looking at too, and they've made the decision that they like that better. That's cool. No problem. I like Garrett Wilson better right now than anybody in this draft because I know I can rely on him. I know he's going to get open, and I know he's going to do everything that he did in college because what he does in college is smooth as silk, and he can project. I'm a little more conservative. I don't want to take risks with my first-round picks.
Right. And that makes sense. And I haven't seen a ton of Pickens yet. I'm excited to see it. I'm told he's a really technically sound guy too. It's just a matter of if he's as explosive as he was.
Man, I think he's technically sound in his route running. I don't like the what I saw last year in terms of like actually being physical enough to exploit the DBs. That's it. Another one from Claude. Thank you, Claude. The disparate opinions on Karlaftis. Why should the Chiefs stay away from him? He's because he's a one-trick pony. He's a power rusher. He does not have enough bend. He does not have enough lateral quickness for me to think that he can actually exploit NFL tackles. He is powerful. He's got a decent first step, and in between a phone booth, he can move pretty good laterally. But when he has to actually come off the edge and bend it in any kind of way, it's not his game. And that's what the Chiefs have to have. They want power with bend, and unfortunately, that doesn't grow on trees. And it's a guy I would much rather have Cam Thomas who can do that. And maybe isn't quite as powerful and still can do a number of things. So that's where I'm.
Thomas guy?
I am a Thomas guy.
Okay.
In fact, for the record, I'm the Thomas guy.
Oh.
Back in November, I was a Thomas guy.
Oh, okay. I'll make sure not to try to become the Thomas guy.
Speedy, with us having Mahomes, do you think that the wide receiver drafted later in the draft with high potential and focus on the defense early? I think that's perfectly fine.
I struggle with the concept of, we've talked about this before, the ceiling for the offense is so high. And I think the way you consistently win in the NFL is in 2022 at least, with a consistently great offense. It's less matchup prone, being varied, being able to win a variety of ways. And so because of Mahomes, the floor of the offense is higher, but the ceiling is too. And that's where I struggle in terms of them not investing repeatedly at the weapons positions, especially again with how expensive wide receivers are getting. We are starting to pass the day where you can get a competent, sure thing at wide receiver for your number 2 guy for decent money. Juju Smith-Schuster was pretty expensive, and he's coming off an injury and a year where he was okay. MVS coming off injury. I mean, and those guys weren't cheap either. Other guys are paying like $16 million a year for decent players. So that's one reason why, I think if you get in now, I feel like teams are going to be scrambling for wide receivers over the next few years.
Well, and I'll say this too, with 2 first-round picks and 2 second-round picks, I feel like you can get something done with them and still accomplish your needed goals on defense at the same time.
For sure.
Because there's a number of second-round guys. I think Pickens is a second-round guy. Take him. I have no problem taking George Pickens. I'm just saying I can't go up and get him that I see a lot of people advocating for. Take Khalil Shakir. Take a third-round pick on Alec Pierce. Still has the explosiveness to exploit defenses. Sky Moore. There's enough on day 2 that I think you can get a lot of stuff done there. KC, with the rumors of DK Metcalf trade, do you guys feel like the requisite skills to fit in this offense, or is he an overrated wide receiver? I don't know that I'd call him overrated, but I don't think he has the complete skill set to fit in this offense, other than he could do some things and you have to let him grow into the rest.
He's an elite deep threat. He is a receiver that can win at other levels of the field too. His quickness issues didn't really, when people made a big deal about that coming out, because I think what was this 3-cone time that was really bad. I can't remember which one it was.
Yeah, all of his agilities were terrible.
Right. I think what people underestimated is how many routes, similar with the Drake London thing, how many routes are what you could almost describe, and this is borrowing a phrase from another area, so it's not accurate, but it describes it well. How many routes are one cut routes? One cut and explode. And that's where DK Metcalf, where he, yeah, apparently I'm doing the Sean Connery accent.
Because I'm Scottish myself.
He can, similar to like a Drake London, he can win on slants, on ins, on certain, you can win on some one cut and explode routes, and you can have a bigger route tree than you think with a guy like that. It's just never going to be as complete as certain other guys. Here's the thing with DK Metcalf. If the Chiefs could trade for him for, a first-round pick and a fourth-round pick and pay him $20 million a year, as opposed to the average of 25 and then the haul that came with Hill, I could live with that.
I put it this way. The DK Metcalf trade hurts you in two ways. You get a plus receiver, so that's one on the positive, but you're giving up draft capital and you're giving up your future in terms of being able to sign other free agents. So there's two drawbacks.
And that's where, they were willing to go down that road, although not with the draft capital, with Tyreek Hill. And that's what you have to consider. With DK Metcalf, you're giving up the cap space, but also draft capital, whereas with Tyreek Hill, it was just cap space.
It's just one.
And Hill's a better player by a decent margin.
Yeah.
And that's where, like I said, if they could get, if they could swap to where, you're swapping out Hill for Metcalf, and you made out ahead in the draft in a healthy way, and you didn't spend quite as much money as you would, then it's like, okay, I can see this. We've got 85% the receiver, but look, we've got an extra second-round pick and an extra fourth-round pick, and we're saving $8 million a year against the cap. Okay. But that's not going to work because he's going to sign for a deal as big as Tyreek Hill's, because that's how contracts work in the NFL.
Yeah. Chase, welcome to the memberships. Hit me up if you want to join the Discord. Frey, thank you. I'm glad you're enjoying this. Glenn, thank you for the support. I hope your soup's good. Bigger need right now. Great question. Bigger need right now. Third safety or third linebacker?
Third linebacker.
Wow. I'll say safety then. I think it's a toss-up.
Either one of them. And a lot depends. They signed a pair of guys in Bush and Carter that I think they're counting on to be able to passively fill that third guy role. And if they can, great.
They can't. I'm sorry. The truth sucks. Glenn, thank you. Appreciate you. Chase, what is the ceiling for MJ Sanders, Kobe Bryant, Perrion Winfrey, and Tyquan Thornton? Thornton can be a role player. He could certainly be a third wide receiver that you can use to exploit. Perrion Winfrey can be a rotational pass rushing D tackle. I don't like him as an every down guy, but he might be what we're hoping Turk Wharton is going to become. And somebody come in and give you some pass rush. Kobe Bryant can be a starting corner in this league. I guarantee you. And I personally love the fit for him here in Kansas City. MJ Sanders, the problem for MJ is I think he belongs in a 3-4, but he wins inside with his strength. So he's a tough fit. But I do think he can give you a serviceable starter even in Spag's system. It's just I don't know if he can play, 60 snaps a game for you. Have you watched any of those players? Like Thornton? He's a wide receiver. Okay.
Oh.
Last super chat of the night, folks. We're going to wrap it up here unless there's some new ones. Seth with the and it is from Gooch. Nice to see you, Gooch. Glad you're back.
Hey, Gooch.
Good evening, Rose. It's Juicy Tasty, and I know that I'm not missing alive. I'm happy to know that you're not missing alive as well. And I know we'll get you back. You guys, Gooch and Keys have been tied up. They got a lot going on. They'll get back here eventually as well. And I'm going to have a bunch of little tidbits. Dan Brugler is going to be on the channel. He's going to be on all my shows here next week. So you have some bits from there. I'm going to have some other draft takes. I see some questions here about some corners and stuff. Emerson, Zion, Collum. I think they're both like third, fourth rounders. I think that's perfectly fine. And I think they can both help you. I like Zion McCollum. I just haven't been able to get enough film. I don't know what he's going to be or what I think he's going to be. So that's a stab in the dark. But two guys that I know that do know his film and have watched him play believe that he can make it in this league. We'll Chiefs have brought in Sam Womack and Quan Williams in consecutive years as possible slot guys. Is Marcus Jones a short guy I like? Where can Casey consider Jones in the draft? Jones is an early day 3 guy on our board, I'm pretty sure. I have not stacked my corners yet. But I will tell you this. I would much rather take Dax Hill at 29 or 30 than I would wait for a guy that can let L'Jarius be an outside corner. I'm just going to say that. Win early in the route and you win.
Trying to plan things around something that would let L'Jarius be a boundary guy, I think is a good idea.
I agree. Now, if Spags will listen to us, hey, I'll buy you Z-Man, Spags. Sit down with me and Seth. I know how to get to you. I don't know how to get to Spags. Folks, that's going to wrap it up. Check out the Matrix. It is out. The draft guide is here. I'm very pumped about it. Dan put in a lot of work. Jeff Porter did a ton of work for this.
I'm tired. You guys work so hard.
Yeah, he's exhausted. Give him a hand, will you, folks? Get it at Rogue APC. Use the code RGR22AM. Don't be bashful. Use the code. It's there for you as a reward for being our supporters. Thank you, all you super chatters tonight. The Substack is coming. That's going to have all our personal rankings, all the actual, when you put it all together philosophically, all the continued draft stuff. And it won't be as good as Seth's, but it'll be good. It'll be fine. So I think you guys will dig it. Seth, any parting words for today?
Man, I am going to go home and take a nap. My wife almost talked me into a 4-day Florida trip today. Oof. Because I don't know if you can see, but it's snowing again here. You can't really see. And it's
like you live in Minnesota.
It's breaking my spirit. And I need to go. So please subscribe to the Chief in the North. Save me from this deepest circle of hell.
There you go. Everybody give Aaron a hand for being our moderator, taking care of everything. Hope you guys are ready. We will have something over the weekend if anything breaks. I have a lot going on. I will do some little tidbits. You're going to get some of those shorter videos again from me on draft content as we get closer. So just be prepared for that. Everybody enjoy your weekend. Have a good one. Have a beer on me. And we'll be back with you next week. Sunday night breakdown, the mock draft. We're going to do it again, and maybe we'll do some of your crazy scenarios, folks. One day I'll get Seth to do one too. So everybody have a great one. We'll talk to you next time. I didn't know how to sign off.